See ya.
Hello, everybody. We'll be starting off the TRB Retail Bulletin webinar very shortly. We're just waiting for some people to join us. Right, by my clock, it's 12 o'clock. So hello, everybody. Official welcome this time from myself, Darren Williams, and on behalf of the Retail Bulletin. This is my dog, Scamp, who has decided to join me for the opening intro. She's been asleep all morning and has decided this webinar is the one that she wants to join. So I'm going to put her down to one side. She may appear again at some point, but yes, that's my dog Scamp, and she may or may not join us later. As I said, I'm Darren. I'm the CEO of a skincare brand called Scrubbed, and I am also, for my sins, the MD of a consultancy called Williams Harding. Today, webinar number 2 this morning, we are talking about invigorating physical store space, particularly sales post-lockdown and how we transform in-store using digital and other methods as well in this new living with COVID world that we occupy. We have got a brilliant panel that will make that title sound a lot more exciting than I did. But first of all, before we do start cracking on with the panel, I'd like them to actually introduce themselves. And I'm going to go around the order of the appearance on my screen. So moving to my right, Fiona, welcome to the panel. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi Darren, thanks. Fiona here from Blackjack Promotions. I'm the head of Experiential at Blackjack. We are a leading talent resourcing company working in experiential across brand promotions, airports, retail, shopping centres and outdoor events. So really interesting webinar to join. Previous life worked for Dufry, a global travel retailer, and also Gap as commercial manager. Really pleased to be here. Thanks for the intro.
And we're pleased to have you here as well. Thank you so much. Richard, moving to the right, you are at the right of Fiona on my screen, so you're next. Tell us about you.
Thanks, Darren, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'm Richard Willis. I'm the International Regional Vice President for Aptos. I actually work with retailers, or have been working with retailers around the globe for many, many years. And within Aptos, I'm particularly focused at retailers in Europe and Asia. So I have a pretty good view of what's happening in retail around the world right now, and can bring that to bear, not just at what's going on in the UK. As I say, I've been working with retailers many years, providing solutions to not only help transform the in-store experience, but also extend into the back end, where obviously the all-important supply chain to getting product in the right place at the right time is all important. So yeah, delighted to be part of the panel.
Thanks, Richard. It'll be certainly good to get a global lens on what you're seeing out there as well, so we can cover that off as we talk as well. Dirk, you're next. Hello, tell us about you.
Good afternoon, I'm Dirk Lubbers. I'm from the Netherlands. At the moment I'm in Soest, at the Military System Museum now. From 2010 till 2017, I was responsible for the Heineken Experience, one of the biggest attractions in Amsterdam, with more than 1 million visitors. After that, from 2017 till the end of 2019, I was responsible for Tourism Group International, the biggest tour operator in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, with own content, so with own attractions, with own experiences. And now I'm responsible for building up the World Food Experience at the moment. So that's it.
And do you think those million visitors to Heineken were there for the experience or the beer, Dirk?
My political answer will be the experience, but of course the beer. Huh?
A combination of the two, no doubt.
Of course, it's a combination.
Excellent. Last but not least, Brian, please do introduce yourself. Welcome to the panel.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Brian Hume from Martec International. I founded Martec as a retail consulting and training company now 33 years ago. And before that, 2 careers in the Debenhams department store group, one in IT, and my second career running a chunk of the Debenhams supply chain. And before that, with a systems integrator, and then early in my career with Whitbreads in the logistics side of Whitbreads. So I've been in retail now in excess of 40 years. So I know quite a lot about buying, merchandising, store operations and supply chain. So that's probably my major part of my contribution to today.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Well, thank you all to the panel. I'm sure you are all going to have lots of compelling insight for us today. For those of you that are watching us, thank you for joining us as well. Thank you for attending the webinar. We'd like your involvement too. So please do use the little Q&A button at the top of your screen. We often get some very rich questions or insight with questions on that tab. So please do use it and find a way to get involved with the webinar as well. I will try to get to every question that gets asked. And particularly if you want to put a question to a certain member of the panel because of the business they work for or the experience or background they have, do so as well. So I'll keep an eye on the Q&A throughout this webinar. We'll be aiming to wrap up by about 12:45, so please don't hang around, get your questions in and we will get to them. So I'm going to kick off. I'm going to start with the order of the intros, if I may. So Fiona, that means you have the joy of kicking off with the first question. So obviously the news is dominated by COVID, and as a result of COVID, we are seeing a huge number of redundancies across retailers. And a number of those redundancies are front-facing staff in stores as well. Do you foresee retailers and brands replacing, human beings, in-store experts with a more digital interaction? Or do you think the human being and the in-store expert still has a place to stay in our stores?
My short answer, absolutely. The industry that we all work in, and particularly for a promotional business like Blackjack, is that from our perspective, the in-store expert is crucial to delivering that experience and, providing a level of service and also sort of closing that sale for the customer. I am also the first person to agree that digital has been that kind of hero during lockdown for all of us in lots of different capacities. But I believe, real people and real experiences will always have a crucial role. Think about, all those different senses, touching, smelling, tasting. That kind of experience can't be achieved in a digital sense. People want to get hands-on with the product and get that kind of advice. And I think that retailers and brands, large and small, we need to really dig deep and think about how are they going to bridge that gap? How are they going to reset the experience? How are they going to bring people back into store to give people that experience that they're craving? This weekend we've got an event that's going on in Westfield, London, and it's one of our first that we're kind of getting back into, and it's been meticulously planned. We've been working with the brand and the retailer to think about how do you do it safely, how do you do it so that you can still provide that level of experience, satisfy the brand from a kind of a campaign point of view, but also do it with providing confidence to the consumer that there's not going to be any kind of risk. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that moves forward. So I think, retail staff, in-store experts have always been and will continue to deliver that service. We've got to find a way to bring it closer together with digital so the two can work hand in hand in that in-store experience. I think so many times now, even before the pandemic, I would see digital being like a tablet or being a screen that would show information, and it's like, well, we've ticked the box on digital, we've done that. Yeah. Actually now I'm thinking, well, actually people want more. People still want that level of interaction. They want to learn, they want to experience a product, and it's not good enough anymore just to tick the box digital by having a screen in store that's playing some kind of video or promotional content or a QR code. We've got to have people to bring it to life.
Yeah, I think you're right. And often when they've tried to tick that box and it's just sort of an iPad in a stand on the corner, 9 times out of 10, that iPad's not working anyway. Well, yeah. And so the attempt at digital interaction never has gone that well. What's your event or your activation with Westfield? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so it's in the shopping centre itself, working with Ocean Outdoor and some perfume brands. So we're actually one of the first activations that are taking place in the shopping centre and bringing it to life. So it's been interesting planning it because we're essentially we're sampling. We're sharing the experience of a new fragrance with consumers in the shopping centre. So everything from PPE to branding the PPE, actually bringing it to life a little bit more. So rather than PPE being a bit of a divisive kind of mechanic within a promotion, actually making it part of the promotion itself. So that's been quite an interesting journey to go on, and also planning the space itself. So where experiential builds would often be quite open spaces where you want to invite people in, you don't want barriers between your team and the general public, we've had to think about how do you actually entice people into that space, but how do you also do it so it's safe and that we're honouring social distancing measures. So we've had to work very closely with Ocean and with Westfield to make sure that we're ticking all of those boxes. And then on the day, it's down to my team to make it fun and to kind of go, yes, I'm wearing a visor. Yes, I'm having to sanitize my hands. Yes, I'm having to do all these things that I wouldn't normally do, but doing it with a smile and bringing it to life and just saying to people, hey, come on over, you know, come and try this great new. So that's kind of going to be really interesting on Saturday to see how that goes. And we're really optimistic. And at the moment, it all looks like it's heading in the right direction. So I can't wait to get involved, if I'm honest, and kind of get back out there.
Good. Well, it'd be great to hear how that goes, actually, as well, because I think, you know, those sort of activations are what we need to see, you know, and particularly with, you know, numbers seeming to be on the rise again. I'm sure a lot of retailers are feeling nervous about what the right way forward is as well. So thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure.
Richard, hello.
Yes. Hi.
I've moved along the square to you. What are retail stores going to look like when, I'm not going to even say when this is all over, because we might have to live with this for a couple of years yet. So I think it's dangerous to use the term post-COVID world, or even the hated phrase is just a personal detest of mine, new normal, because nobody knows what that really means. What are stores going to look like as we cope with living with COVID is probably what I'm going to ask you, rather than say post-COVID, cope with COVID.
Yeah, I think it's with COVID very much, isn't it? And I agree with you. I think we're definitely here for some time to come, at least 6 to 12 months. You know, I think everybody's hunkering down right now and preparing for you know, the concerns as we've seen, particularly in the UK, the number of cases increase and you know, the impact that is having. And, you know, in and amongst all of this, and I know this is very much a technology session, but you've got to look at the practicalities or the impacts that it's having on retailers. And, you know, we talk about experience, you know, retail and the reason people go to the store is for that experience. There was a lot of investment in experiential retailing. That's now challenged because the social aspect of going to a store is now made harder. The experience of going to a store, quite frankly, is actually not a great experience in the main for people. You know, you're masked up, you're queuing outside to get in. You get in, you can't try the clothes on if it's in a fashion world, and then you have a bigger queue to then come out and check out. So the experience, and you know, this is no fault necessarily of the retailers, it's the safety measures that are put in place. So, you know, whilst we all try and face how do we deal with those safety measures, you know, what does that look like going forward? You know, for me, we've got to work with retailers to try and find how we make a better experience. And experience isn't just about the in-store, you know, the environment, what new events are going on in store. It's about having the right product. It's about at the right time. It is that staff interaction. You know, the previous question that you put to Fiona, I think there is an absolute balance between technology and digital in store and the staff effect, and you've got to find the right balance. And of course, you know, let's not be too generalistic, because of course in a shoe retailer you need staff from a shoe fitting perspective in the main part of the service. In luxury and premium brands, in luxury you expect to be served. In mainstream and certainly in value retailing, there is a more automated process, and we've been working with H&M recently in rolling out self-service kiosks to help customers get through, check themselves out and leave the store. So I think, you know, depending upon which sector of retail, you're going to see a real mix and blend of technologies to help with the checkout process. And I was delighted to see, you know, where we're hearing, you're right, staff being made redundant, stores staffing being reduced. On the other hand, Primark have been investing in actually putting out more tills. So they've taken the bold approach of investing more and they're seeing the upturn. If you saw the publication recently, you know, Primark are seeing great sales figures because they've put more investment in helping people get through the checkouts at the end. So taking that further, like an H&M approach, it's about how do we bring new technology to play, like self-service. We're getting an increase, and I'm seeing an increase in the desire to have scan and go, so consumers using their own mobiles. So I think, you know, for us at Aptos, and what I'm seeing is that shift and view to how do we get the right balance of technology? How do we help the end of the experience of once you're in and you found what you want of getting out the store as painless as possible? And indeed, you know, the other element, and pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, there was a move towards, I'd call it assisted selling, where you've got colleagues on the sales floor with tablet devices helping with a purchase and then handing off to a fixed point. We're seeing now a view that actually, if we make all of the colleagues mobile, they can not only help you make your purchase, they can help you check out. Again, all safely, all very simply, but it means as you've got reduced store staff, you can actually be on the sales floor being productive rather than behind a checkout, you know, serving that long queue. So I think, you know, for what does the stores look like, depending upon what sector, I think there is going to be more of a blend of technology to help you find the product that you're looking for and check out. But, you know, for me, the overriding piece is until the COVID safety measures, particularly in fashion retailing, and that's such a big part of retail in this country that's getting hit, until we can go there and have the experience of trying those garments on, you know, it's going to be a challenging experience. And as much as we can put in magic mirrors and put 3D technology to what does that look like, that's a big expense for a retailer to put and try and roll out across their estate. They can put it in flagships, of course, and that's the challenge. But I think, you know, we've got to do some, retailers have got to look at the basics. They've got to work in terms of the safety measures and try and figure out a way of circumventing those measures. Not circumventing, that's probably the wrong word, but trying to find a better way of bringing the experience back to get that footfall, because we're seeing footfall increase, but sales are not there in general. So I think it's bringing the experience back.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the Primark example is an interesting one, where if you are bolder and you do invest in the front line, you know, it can still reap dividends. I think even before the pandemic, one of a retailer's easiest mistakes to make was to see a cost of the business, and the first thing they'd look at to cut would be their workforce.
Yeah.
And often the workforce would come from the front line, which immediately impacts the consumer. And it was always really interesting to me why that was always the first line to be looked at, when there was often very top heavy HQs, or, you know, a very large amount of middle management, if you like, but they always went for the store staff first. And it's always interested me why that would be.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
The second point really is about the use of technology to make people feel safer. And I still don't think that's been well utilized yet. And I'm going to come on to you with this point, if I may, Dirk. But for me, it's about, don't just use technology to help me shop better and quicker and faster and more efficiently, but think of interesting ways to let me know that I'm safe in stores. And it's a non-retailer example, but I'll give you this example from my gym. So I'm a member of Virgin Active. I was delighted finally when the gyms reopened at the end of July. And what they do on their app is they have a heat map. So I can go onto my club, and they have a simple red, amber, green traffic light system that show you how many people are in the gym at that time. And so you can make an informed decision before you turn up, whether you want to go or not. And I thought, actually, isn't that a great tool that retailers could use as well? You know, it's because I think some people still don't quite know whether to cross the threshold or not, because are they going to be safe when they get indoors? So I think it's an interesting thing for retailers to consider. And this brings me on to you, Dirk. In terms of experience, you are arguably the man with the biggest experience on the panel in terms of bringing large scale experiences to a consumer. I mean, your world has kind of disappeared this year, right?
Yes.
How do you bring it back, and how do you use digital to attract customers back, make them feel safe, and employ it into the day-to-day world of the experiences that you run?
It's a good question.
It's a big question. There's quite a lot of questions in the question, I think, as well, but there you go.
To be honest, I have no clue. No, I have a little bit. Of course, I'm not a retail specialist. No, I'm not. I'm more into the experience or attraction world. So,
from that point of view, how, when you're running big attractions, how do you come back?
There will be. I think my personal view will be that after COVID, I think life will go on the way it was. People are more tending to be careful, and that's good in the future. But I think it will. I'm an optimistic guy, so I think in the future it will also feel good again. Because the thing that COVID shows is that people miss human interaction. That's the whole point. You see that now. So when finally it's also safe for people to come and go into attractions and to undergo and to have fun again, people will go. And I think there will be, and hopefully it will be within 6 months. So I'm still very optimistic about that. In the meantime, and you see with a lot of attraction, they limited the number of tourists or visitors at the moment, and that's drastically. It's normally they will have like if you go to the Heineken Experience, for example, at the moment, I think they have a capacity for 15%. So, right.
And you're a non-exec at the World Food Experience. So, what are your plans to come back? When's the next event you guys are running?
The World Food Experience. The only thing we have is the building from the outside. Yeah. So we have to strip the inside. We have to build it, and we open it on 1st of January in 2023. So
okay. So you really will be in a post-COVID world. Please, I think hopefully we can be sure by then. Absolutely. I wasn't aware it was that far away, Dirk. Sorry.
No problem. But I'm also working on a big project in China, and at the moment there's a delay for almost a year now because of COVID. Yeah. So we can't go in, we can't go out, and the only thing we can do is from a distance. So it's only online, but that's not always the key to start.
No, and certainly not the key for the experience as well. How is it for the people behind the businesses, in places like China, where you're literally sort of frozen with not able to take any action or progress? Is it a sort of a time where businesses can fall over because of this, or are people behind these businesses fairly calm that all will be well eventually, or is it a mix of the above?
It's a mix, but people are frozen at the moment, so there's no progress. There's no progress at all, and especially if you go to the biggest cities in Europe, and the number of tourists who are not coming now at the moment, that's a disaster at the moment. So if that continues for more than 6 months, there will be a lot less of attractions in musea in all those capitals.
Okay.
So at the moment in Amsterdam, it's not a fun place to be.
I'm sure,
and so I feel along with all those guys who work there.
Yeah. Interesting times, to say the least.
But if you go to the experience and the future of retail, I think a lot of attraction, especially the bigger brand experience like Heineken or the Guinness Storehouse in Dublin, where like they have shown how you can entertain or experience people when they go into the shop, and how can you manage them to buy more goods than they are planning to do in the beginning, because they knew they did it, and they did it with the trick. They all personalized items, and you know, personalized digitalization, that's the future where everybody is talking about it. And I also believe in that.
It was always big before this, wasn't it? It was big already and growing exponentially. And now it seems like it's going to be bigger still.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, Dirk. I'm going to move on to Brian, and then I'm going to open up some more discussion to the panel. Just before we do come to Brian, we still have no Q&A in yet from any of our attendees. There are a number of you out there, so I know you're watching, unless you've just stuck the screen on and put us on mute in the corner. So please do use the Q&A function, and we'll be able to get questions to all or any of the panel that you may want to talk to. Brian, we, I think, have a collective agreement that neglecting the in-store experience could be damaging for a retailer or a brand. Why is it still happening then? From your view, not saying you represent someone where it's still happening.
The first reason it's happening is that people have been very preoccupied, actually quite rightly, with just executing all of the safety processes and all of the physical changes in the stores, just getting all that sorted to try and make the store environment safe. And the challenge with that is, I think by and large, retailers have done a good job on making the store environment safe. But in the process, they've made the shopping experience worse.
Yeah.
That, you know, so kind of they've done what they had to do, but in the process, the whole shopping experience has got worse. One of the challenges is you've got to decide now, what is your core objective now that you've got the safety mechanisms in place. And everybody talks about, so far everybody's talked about sales. And actually, in one sense, sales is not the issue. Because if you look at recent announcements, I've looked at quite a few recent announcements in the UK and America on when people have declared their, you know, half-year profits or whatever. And the first thing, and you take Primark, for example, I think Richard mentioned Primark had a very successful sales experience. Actually, if you drill down on their statement, they are now forecasting that their profit for this fiscal year will drop, just Primark, by £450 million. Right? From about somewhere around about £700 down to 700 million down to 270 odd million. I got the numbers not quite right, but it's a drop of roughly £450 million. Okay. And why is that? Well, partly it's, of course, you know, there was a period of time when we're in lockdown and there were no sales, especially since Primark has no online business. Right? But secondly, most of what they're selling right now is heavily marked down stock, because it's really the tail end of the stuff that we didn't clear up at the end of the winter season, and it's the early spring merchandise where we're now in, you know, at the end of summer. So an awful lot of what's being sold, you know, sales volume, you know, in terms of pound notes, sales look like they're going up, but it's kind of illusionary because the margin isn't there. And then the knock-on challenge of that is, if you don't have profit and you know, if you don't have margin, that you don't have cash flow. And if you don't have cash flow, you haven't got the money to invest in all this new technology. So there might be wonderful things you can do with a lot of this technology, but I don't think a lot of people are actually in a position to pay for it. Now, there is one significant exception to that, which is if you offer cloud services, but you don't want someone to pay a lot of upfront money to go live on the cloud service, there are opportunities for some technology vendors to actually step in now and take some market share. But from the retailer's perspective, the most important thing, and certainly what I've been telling all my clients is, most important thing right now is to focus on cash generation, because the knock-on effect of the current profitability is come February, March next year, you're going to see a much more significant round of bankruptcies than we've seen up till this point. And so we've got to hope people have a good Christmas. We've got to focus on the things that we can do. And in this context, getting the consumer into the store is critical, because the other challenge is that online sales have grown significantly because of you know, the digital experience is a lot safer than the store visit experience. But the problem is, depending on exactly what you mean by online, you know, as a generalization, online is much less profitable than retailing through stores. Mm. And a lot of people will disagree with that, but actually I've done a lot of analysis on it. Now, if you kind of take orders online for collection in store, you know, so-called click and collect, or BOPIS, or BOPIS as the Americans call it, that is proportionally more profitable than orders taken online delivered to customers' homes, right? But there's been a big swing to delivering to customers' homes in the pandemic because people were at home to receive the deliveries and the stores weren't open to do the click and collect, right? So we kind of swung against click and collect in the short term. So, all that growth in online sales, whilst it's been good in the sense that consumers could get things they needed when the shops were closed, it's got a negative impact. It further reinforces the profit problem in a lot of cases. And so there is a kind of, you know, there's a heck of a thing to sort out here. And my other kind of, to be slightly negative in once, and I'm quite positive, slightly negative is I'm of the view that when you look at the real underlying problems, this is at least 2 years and probably 3 and 4 before we get on top of this. You know, this isn't going to be something we're going to fix in the next 6 or 12 months. You know, the damage now is so deep that we're in, but the secret is, my own view, the kind of one line secret is we've got to make the customer service in stores excellent. And it's got to be sufficiently good that it overcomes the resistance to all the safety mechanisms. You know, you've got to compensate for the fear that people have got of being exposed going into a store. And so therefore you've got to look at customer experience and say, you know, how do we provide excellent customer service? Part of that, the foundation of all service is you've got to be in stock. So part of it is about stock management, because you've got to be in stock of what the customer wants. And that's tricky when you've had 3 months of really bad cash flow. Just having the cash to buy the stock that you really want and getting it, especially now, getting it in time, you know, that's one check. But then all the other part of it is all the service that people do. It's all those things like assisted selling that Richard talked about, clienteling and that kind of. So people are working on this, but it is a heck of a complex problem. Mm.
But it was a problem before the pandemic, right? And I think it's just been, just been heightened.
Exacerbated problems that were there. You know, department stores have been in trouble for years.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the department store model is...
Put Harvey Nichols, you know, Harrods, put the elites, as it were, to one side, but your mass department store chain's been in trouble for years. This has just accelerated.
Yeah, it's just underlined it. I mean, thank you, Brian. Lots of insight there. I'm going to put you all on the spot, actually, so we can answer in any particular order that you like while you have a think about your answer. Who is doing it well? So who is coming out of the other side of the initial lockdown? I use those words deliberately, well, as a retailer. And I think supermarkets we should park to one side, because whether you share this view or not, they deserve our kudos and our thanks, because, you know, the supermarkets were hit with a tidal wave of trade that they normally have months to plan for, and they kept the nation fed. So I think they deserve our thanks. So supermarkets aside, who is sort of emerging in this new life well, in your view? And I'd love you to sort of shout out, as you kind of think of your example, one retailer or one brand that you think is doing a good job so far in this new world that we're living in.
From my point of view, the one that did well for me during lockdown was Wix. And the reason they did, because the stores were closed, but they introduced this, what is now known in America as BOPAC, buy online, pick up at curbside. They introduced curbside collection at their, outside there, and you could order what you needed online, and they would email you when it was ready for you to pick up, and you just literally parked outside the front of the store, walked up to the door, an assistant brought the product up to you, you put it in your car and away you went. And I ended up using that about, I'm sure like many people, lockdown became a great time to get all those domestic, all those DIY jobs done that you wanted to get done. So for me, they really got on top of it quickly. And I think in that respect, they did well.
Okay, so brownie points to Wix. We've actually had a comment come in on your previous point, Brian, as well, from someone called Nigel. Thank you, Nigel, that said they don't fully agree with all of the points that you made. It's always good to have some debate. They're saying that with on-site upselling and email marketing and social remarketing and other marketing features, an online retailer has a lot more opportunity to drive sales than a click and collect would at some stores.
If you've ever been into a store where they've got people that can sell as opposed to people that stack shelves, you know, I think one Sunday afternoon when I lived in America, and I went to a men's clothing store, and I wasn't in the market to buy anything, and I walked out having spent $1,000. And I walked out half an hour after the store closed because the salesperson was down. He was going to let me leave just because the store was locking up. He was quite happy to stay there all Sunday night. You get good, well-trained salespeople that know how to sell, and you see them in, you know, you think about it with the upside selfishes, but you see them in funny places. I don't mean to insult anybody, but for example, Bon Marché. It is a company that in some respects does not have a spectacular image, but actually quite a lot of their employees are really good at selling to their customers, making sure the customer gets what they want, but getting them to do the extra item. And I think that when you've got employees that have got the skill, whether they came with it or you trained them, you know, it can add so much to what you buy, and then you come out of the store feeling not only did you spend a lot more money than you planned, but you feel really pleased about it because you ended up getting what you really sometimes didn't know you wanted. But you know,
the very best type of shopping.
So you feel good about it. So I don't really agree with that statement.
Okay, well, it's good to have debate. Over to Fiona. Sorry, Fiona.
I'm with you, Brian. I mean, when I saw that comment come up, I'm with you, which is you can drive all the traffic you want to wherever you want it, but it's about sort of converting that customer from either in airports we call it, you know, passenger penetration, to get them into a customer to actually be purchasing and spending. And for us, it's been about driving safety, which drives confidence, which drives that conversion. And I think we're sort of slowly getting there across the patch. And I think we have a lot of staff going back into airports specifically, working with brands and promoting products. And some of the sales that we're seeing coming back are really positive. You know, we've got people saying, well, you know, I've got 10% of the flights going out of somewhere like Birmingham Airport, but I had a really good day because I had more time with my passenger, I had good stock, okay, and we've talked about the fact that stock integrity is really important. But, you know, particularly in travel retail, when passengers have a finite period of time they're moving through, the brand ambassadors are taking the opportunity to go, right, well, I've got less people, but a bit more time. I've got interesting products in at the moment. There's an array of promotions that are available to them. Like, I'm going to go for it. I can really sort of, you know, get into my stride around my selling and think about how I add on products. And click and collect has also been in the airports the last sort of year or two and had mixed success, but people are still using it. And our brand ambassadors, their training is specifically around add-on sales. It's specifically around how do you say, well, I know you reserve this item, but did you actually see we've got this limited edition, or actually if you purchase this item, there's other options for you. So that's definitely a major part of our training with the teams, is to take those customers who are already engaged and interested in buying a product and then growing it from there. So I'm completely with you.
I just had one other thing in this. A lot of the stuff that I've studied in last few weeks is, although traffic is often down, actual transaction sizes are quite often getting bigger. You do transactions, but they're bigger transactions because you make the effort to overcome the safety barriers, as it were, in the store. And when you're there, you go for everything you can get while you're there because you don't want to do it again.
Okay, Fiona, I didn't actually hear who your retailer that you were giving your gold star to so far. Who would that be?
Well, we work very closely with World Duty Free. They're one of our key retailers that we engage with right across the UK, and we've had to work very closely with them to make safe environments for our staff to work with brands in their stores. And that's been everything from creating our own online trainings. We had like a Be Ready campaign, so our staff were trained and ready to go at any moment getting that call to say, you're coming back into the airport, you're coming back into store, and we want you to start selling products. So we've had to work really carefully with them, and that's everything from PPE. How do you navigate that airport experience safely and confidently? Because like we said at the start, if people can be safe and you can make them feel confident, then they go into store with that attitude of, you know what, I'm going to get back to enjoying that human interaction. And we've worked really carefully with World Duty Free and the Do Free team to do that across lots of airports across the UK. I'm pleased to say that we've got loads of staff going back in and shops are reopening. So traffic, as I said, is down. You know, we can all see it, passenger numbers are somewhere 70 to 80% down on where they should be, but conversion rates are moving in the right direction. So it's all around the team in store really going for it and selling to the passengers.
So World Duty Free would be your nomination.
Absolutely.
I miss airports. I miss traveling. I look forward to doing it again one day. Richard, who would be your shout out as a retailer that seems to be playing it well so far?
Yeah, I think during pandemic, you know, it was tough because our core market space is in fashion apparel retailing, and you know, those guys took a hammering. So I'm kind of with Brian. Between Wix and B&Q, I thought they responded well as essential retailers, and the whole drive up and they load your car for you in the case of B&Q or Wix, very similar, was a fantastic response. But we also worked with a retailer in North America called Vitamin Shop, doing that buy online, pick up at curbside, and you actually they put a very temporary process in place, and we helped them deliver a payment at curbside. So they literally, you just drive up, they give you the goods, you tap contactless and drive off. And you know, that contactless piece, we've talked a lot about service and contactless payments, that I think has just grown exponentially. You know, cash is this is hammering cash really, in terms of the way that we're just going for our phones now. You know, it's again less contact, isn't it? So I think during the pandemic, you know, those essential retailers, I thought they did a great job. Post pandemic, you know, we are seeing some responses. As I said, I think Primark. You know, I take Brian's points on, you know, at the end of the day, it's about, you know, creating an environment that is giving space and not overcrowding your store. So I think Primark has done well. I think, you know, clearly H&M are investing in new ways of helping their customers feel safe. But also, you know, Mango have found a way to open some of their fitting rooms in the big stores. You know, for me, those guys have probably come out. So yeah, I think I'd say that the gold star during the pandemic would probably be shared between B&Q and Wix on a personal experience. Post pandemic, yeah, I'd probably have to give it to Primark for just kind of getting people through and encouraging us, you know, safely to get through those stores and out again. And, you know, I have a view on the whole on-site versus store piece, to Brian's point that he made earlier on. I think, again, you know, it's coming back to getting the customer at the point of decision or the point of purchase. When you're online, you're there typically to buy something. Yes, you'll browse and then you're in a buying mode. So the upsell, you've got a good point. But if we get the right level of sales colleagues equipped appropriately and with the right sales training, they can be as effective in store, because you're in buying mode, you're looking, and at that point they can start to upsell to you. So give them the right tools to do the job, and I think a in-store sales colleague can be just as effective, but it's about making it at the point of purchase, the point of decision, not at the point of sale when you're checking out, because you don't want to go back and go around and find product again.
Richard, thank you. Dirk, over to you. Who are going to be receiving your honours today in terms of retailers?
I agree with the other panels because I think the people are key. If you build the most beautiful attraction and your staff has no passion at all, no enthusiasm, then the traction will never flourish. If you have that in the shop, it will be the same, and also online. In the Netherlands, I nominate Coolblue because their service is outstanding. And I think because of the serving, and I think the level of pricing is even higher than their competitors, but their service is so good that they are really at the moment outstanding in their branch.
And have they always been that way, or do you think it's been fine-tuned since the pandemic?
No, they were always that way.
Yeah.
And I think at the moment, of course, they're fine-tuning it now, but they were always that way. They start with the service and then with the products.
Yeah, I do think we are seeing retailers sort of pedaling as fast as they can, and they were already pedaling pretty fast before the pandemic started as well, in terms of their to-do list and things that they needed to fix or transform in store, and not just in store, online in some cases as well. We are going to come to the end, but I want to move to you, all of you, for some kind of closing thoughts, and sort of to give a bit of thought to that. One of my, I guess, issues at the moment, not just with retailers, but with hospitality businesses and all types of businesses and sectors, is that we're really we're so obsessed about what's going to happen to us when actually none of us really know. We're forgetting to deal with the here and now. And there are so many things that need to be dealt with now that were on the list even before the pandemic started. So if my panel, if you were to offer a golden piece of advice to a retailer, or how they navigate the next 6 months and find that balance of, all channels trying to tick over the best that they can, what might be a golden piece of advice or a golden nugget or a piece of experience that you would offer to retailers to, say, navigate the next 6 months, not years ahead, just how we get from this point to spring 2021? What would you offer as your closing advice? And I'd like to hear from each of you on that, please. So in any particular order.
Okay, Darren, I will start because I'm not a specialist on retailing. But I think what I would do if I had a shop at the moment, and of course in every attraction, you end up in a shop and then you go out. What I would do more at the moment is register with cameras and also with trained software. I know it's possible. The behavior of the people who come into the shop, and also how they what their preferences are. So if I compare with my time at the Heineken shop, if people are tending to watch the green shirts on a particular place in the shop more than a bottle, then I would go and place some more shirts with a green logo or a green label on it in the shop. So now it's based more on margin and about numbers. I will also register the data of behavior, and it is possible nowadays to do so. And I think a lot of retailers don't do that at the moment. So, and also make it more personalized, because I've noticed, and in my time at the Heineken Experience, we sold more than 250,000 personalized bottles every year. So it works.
Personalization is going to be huge this coming holidays period for sure. Dirk, thank you for that, and thank you for your contribution to the panel today as well. Who's next? Who wants to close off with their thoughts?
Yeah, shall I jump in, Darren?
Please do, Richard, please.
So I think my advice to retailers would be, to a point that Brian made well, is it is coming back to basics, and there's two parts to it, but it comes under the look at the best experience in the store that you can give by making customers feel safe. So give them space, but get the right assortment in the stores, and look at optimizing your inventory across the estate. Don't silo stock between online and the stores. If anything, in the current time, look at how you can get to a point where you improve the experience by having product local to where your customers need them, and drive that traffic to the stores to collect, fulfill from inventory in the stores. So rather than leaving your stores short or overcrowding your stores, get the balance right so you optimize your inventory and get tools in place to help you optimize inventory back to retailing basics: right product, right time, right place.
Yeah.
And then, then understand your customers and look at how you can improve that customer experience.
It is good to remember, right? Some of those absolute retailing basics. I remember when I used to run Argos London, and the thing that would wind a customer up more than anything was being able to get something online and then turn up to the store and find actually it wasn't really in stock at all. It was a phantom piece of stock that was never really there.
So it's basics. It's how technology, there's a lot of technology that can help, but Brian's right. It's for all of us that rely on retailers, and the profitability it's to help them get through the current time, so that when they're in a position where the bottom line's grown, they can start investing in the right technology to help them grow. But there's technology now that can help them deliver those basics as well.
Thanks, Richard, and thank you to you also for your time on the panel today. Fiona or Brian, one of you is up next.
Ladies first.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Get your safety precautions right. I think, that's part, for me, that now goes as part of the basics. We've talked about stock and right place, right time, but get your safety provisions right, get that done. And then move on to drive confidence. And that's confidence not only just with your own staff, but with your consumer as well. It's treating both of those. And you need to make people feel confident about coming into store. And they only start to feel confident when they know that they're going to be safe. Then move on, think about your conversion, think about staff, right place, right time, with the right skills, the right training, the right tools, and then amplification. How do you then, once you've got those things in the right place, how do you amplify great service? How do you amplify events to make it feel like they're much bigger? How do you launch something in the sense that previous world, you might have invited 500 people down to a store on Oxford Street to take part in an event. How do you do that on a smaller scale, but invite pockets of people and amplify digitally? So for me, it's around making connections, and then starting to have a bit of fun as well. Shopping and buying products and getting out there is meant to be fun, but we can only do that when people feel safe and they have the confidence to do so. Yeah,
absolutely. Fun is something I'm sure we could all do with a lot more of. So thank you for that great summary, and again, Fiona, thank you for your time on the panel today. Brian, you are bringing it to a close before I summarize.
Okay, but so my core thing is you have to focus on excellent customer service, full stop. And for me, that divides into two branches. One is all service fails if you don't have the stock. So part one is get your inventory service levels right. But being realistic, in this world where people are, to some degree at least, cash constrained, because of the impact of the lockdown, if you've done a traditional ABC analysis of your inventory, focus on availability on the A's and B's. In other words, when you look at your assortments, the place to cut the complexity and the too much money tied up in unproductive inventory, the place to chop it is in the so-called long tail, in the C's, in the ABC analysis. So if you've got if you've got all the money that you need, then carry on and do your assortment. But if you're in a limited cash position, focus on the A's and B's in your product range. That's the inventory leg of it. The customer leg, if you've got a decent customer database, or you've got a loyalty scheme, and the data allows you to do a decile analysis, right? A decile, I rank my customers, biggest spenders at the top, smallest at the bottom, and decile 1 is the top 10% of my customers, and so on. Typically, decile 1 accounts for 46% of your entire sales. About 10% of your customers typically account for about 46% of your entire sales. The top 30% account for almost 80% of your entire sales. So forget about trying to please everybody. Focus on, if you've got that analytical support, focus on decile 1, the top 10% that are 46% of your sales, and do special things for them to make them fit. You know, they already like you, so they don't need promotions that are based on big discounts and big reduction, but they want that loyalty treatment. So focus on things like, for example, can you do customer service evenings when you close the store at 5 o'clock and you open it at 6, just for that, for those people, and you guarantee them more spacing, more safety in the store, but also more attention from the sales associates.
Yeah.
Those bigger transaction sizes. And if you get it right for decile 1, then you can include decile 2, and then you can include decile 3. And my last part of that is, if you're making staff redundant because you're closing stores that you're never going to reopen, that's one thing, right? If you're making staff redundant in the stores that you've got every intention of keeping open, I would say this is a really bad time to do that.
Yeah,
Really.
I agree.
Coming up to the Christmas season, this is not the time to be laying staff off in stores that are going to be trading through Christmas.
I think you'll probably have a unanimous yes from the panel on that one, Brian, and that's a perfect summary. I think behind all of these deciles and digits and facts and figures are customers. And I think that's ultimately the thing we need to remember. And we are effectively people serving consumers. And that feels like a beautiful moment to say we have actually ran over quite a bit, but what the hell, we're allowed to. People have still stayed with us, so we must have been saying something they liked. Thank you again to all of the panel today for their contributions. I do believe this will be made available in a recording as well. Scamp has actually slept the whole way through, so we actually clearly didn't keep her very engaged, but I hope we did for you at least. Thank you all indeed for your time on this Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your day. And here we're going to sign out. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.